now.
Hello, everyone. This is Dusty Peterson at the Career Center. We're excited that you're here to join us for our event tonight. We have with us Chandler Menteer, who is joining us for our From Career Surprise to Career Success. He's an SU alum and former track athlete who's going to share strategies for creating a successful career out of unexpected circumstances and how to adapt to the unexpected. Chandler will share a story of how his plan of becoming a police officer was derailed by circumstance, but led to something wonderful. Without further ado, Chandler Menteer.
Awesome. Thank you, and good evening, and a big thank you for the opportunity to be here, especially to the SUU Career Center. I'm excited to be here and speak with you about what my career surprise was and how I turned that surprise into career success. But I'm going to be talking to you tonight not about what my successes were in my particular industry, but we'll be talking about how I dealt with that surprise with skills that are transferable from industry to industry. Because I assure you, you know a career path right now in college. You know what you want. But I can also assure you another thing. The world does not care what you want. The world will give you the opportunity that it wants to provide you. Again, I appreciate my time at SUU. It was incredible. Such a great environment, great people, great surroundings. And seeing the growth of SUU since my time here, I graduated with the class of 2005. Seeing such amazing growth is an incredible testament to the students here, the faculty here, and our future planners at SUU, and our funding partners at the legislative branch. This place is so great. I bring my children here every year. My daughter has immediate plans to play on the SUU softball team with a full athletic scholarship. So anybody in this room who has the ability to give me that money, I'm happy to take it, and I will give you my daughter, and she can play softball for you. But again, today I'm going to talk about the career surprise that I had and a bit of those transferable skills that I learned from my time in college, not in the classroom necessarily, but what I did with those skills to leverage them to get into an industry I had no idea about. So who am I? My name, obviously, is Chandler. I was born in Los Angeles County. I moved to Carson City, Nevada when I was in 4th grade. And this is pertinent because in a few slides we'll be talking about the cultural differences of individuals that you'll have to work with. Some of the skills that I had to leverage with my career surprise was adapting to different cultures and seeing different types of people. You can imagine coming from Los Angeles County, population of approximately 25 million, to Carson City, Nevada, who at the time had a population of about 50,000. That was a huge jump and a huge change for me. What I had to do from LA to Carson City is understand and learn what the culture was like. How do I communicate with people? How do I work through it? Now I'm in 4th grade. That's not a big deal, but what it did provide me is the opportunity at such a young age to learn and adapt to work with different people. Now from Carson City, I moved to Cedar City, Utah. It seems that I keep going from larger to smaller down the road. So a big question, why did I go to Cedar City? And I'll admit, going to school in Utah was, I can't even say it was on my radar. It didn't exist to me. But got an email from the SUU track coach who said, why don't you come down, come check us out and see what we're about. I came down, of course I visited some other schools, and SUU was the place for me. Like I said earlier, I graduated in 2005, and a quick plug to the lovely lady in the back of the room. my greatest accomplishment at SUU, very close to actually graduating, but a great accomplishment nonetheless, was meeting my beautiful wife. Kind of in my freshman year, but really moving into our sophomore year. So what do I do? What do I do right now? I work in the Department of Human Services. Right now I work in the Office of Quality and Design, but I'm going to back up a little bit from that. I started in the Department of Human Services in the Developmental Disabilities Agency, called the Division of Services for People with Disabilities. I started as a case manager and worked my way up through multiple levels. I can say that I had great success by leveraging some of the skills that we'll talk about today, moving from frontline case manager to the associate director level in 10 years, tripling my pay. I don't do this to talk about myself, but to encourage you to look at the skills that we're going to talk about today, how I leverage them, and how I'm going to encourage you to leverage the same ones in a career that you had no idea you were going to get into. I left the Division of Services for People with Disabilities just recently, and I've moved to the Office of Quality and Design. In that office, we have 4 subject matter experts. We have subject matter experts in youth, that is youth in child and family services supports, criminogenic youth, mental health, and developmental disabilities. I am the department's subject matter expert on developmental disabilities. What that really means is, if we find a problem in the developmental disabilities service system, it is my job to identify that problem, research solutions, build those solutions, and implement those solutions with our private contractors. So, what was my career surprise? My introduction mentioned a little bit, I wanted to be a police officer. I was going to be a police officer from the day I turned 6 years old until right after I graduated from college. That was my jam. That's what I was going to do, and there were no doubts about it. But when you want to be a police officer, you have to train for physical activity. You have to be able to demonstrate to them that you can run and chase somebody. Well, as I was training to do that, again, right after graduation, I developed some medical problems with my legs, some stress fractures, which prevented me from moving in with a police department, testing, and getting hired. But what I did need right after I graduated was a job. We all have bills to pay, and I certainly did also. So after I graduated, I knew I couldn't be a police officer right off the bat. I went back home to Carson City. I moved in with my parents, and it lasted 6 days, 5 days. No 22-year-old adult with a college degree wants to live in their parents' basement. If you do, no fault on you. That's great. That was not my path. So on day 6, at literally midnight, I packed my car, told my parents I was leaving. In tears, my mom gave me all the money from her pockets, and I left, and I never looked back. But that led to the career surprise. I was a criminal justice major. My goal was to be a police officer. If I couldn't do that, I still had bills to pay. I needed to find a job. In short order in Cedar City, I found a job in the developmental disabilities industry, specifically with an employer here in Cedar City called Turn Community Services. My job was to support individuals with developmental disabilities to live the life that they wanted to live with the goals that they wanted to set. So, suffice it to say that all of my education in criminal justice was not exactly applicable in the industry of developmental disabilities. So I had to go back, leverage some of those skills that I had already learned, and important for you, I want you to learn from the skills that I had to learn on the job, the hard way to get there. But what I was able to find in my career success was a link between wanting to be a police officer and doing my new job in the developmental disabilities industry. And it came down to one very common thread between both. I wanted to help people. When I was a police officer, I also wanted to punish bad people. But by wanting to help people, I was able to identify that common thread in my career progression and what I wanted to do to seek my own happiness. So when you're looking at a career surprise, I encourage you to do the same. If you had a career idea for A and you're not going to get there, evaluate it. Why did you want career field A? What was your driver behind that? With the career surprise, if you can link that common thread between your absolute goal that had to change versus what you pivoted to, you can take those good feelings you were hoping and expecting from job A and help you apply them to job B. One of the most important things in career success will be your personal happiness, which we'll also get into in just a few slides. So what are some basics for career success? And again, transferable. It does not matter what industry you're in. If you're an accountant, if you're an attorney, if you work in social services, if you work in academics, all of these are applicable. The first I want to point out is listening to leaders. And I want to draw a clear delineation for all of you. Leadership is not management. Huge difference. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can be a manager and a leader, but you do not need to be a manager to be a leader. Managers give you tasks. Leaders support you in completing those tasks in the way that it needs to be done. That support does not need to come from your managers. Leverage others in your agency. And we'll get into this a little bit more. Leverage those in your agency that are resources, that are knowledgeable, that can help. Those are your leaders. They lead by example. Those are the people that you need to identify and work with as you progress in your career. Also importantly, here, it is not enough to know that something happens, but understand why it happens. And I say this because we can all look at the jobs we're in or the jobs that we're going to get, and we can understand that things happen. That's helpful because you know what comes next. You know that it needs to happen. But if you want to leverage a skill to create success and pave your own road, you need to know why it happens the way that it does. This will provide you with a number of opportunities. Quickly going back to the difference between leadership and management, leaders are people that you can ask questions to. They can help you. Leaders get promoted. Leaders get paid more. So when we're looking at this, understanding that something happens is important, but why it happens is more important. It is likely at some point in your career, you will be in a position to recognize efficiencies within your agencies. Be it public, private, an NGO, or a nonprofit agency. Being able to realize efficiencies and support your employer in implementing better and more efficient procedures puts you on a pedestal. Those people get paid. So, if you know the why something happens, and let's say you live in a bubble building widget A, and you know that widget A gets built, and that after it gets built, it moves to widget B. But if you know why widget A gets built the way it does, and you know why widget B gets built the way it does, you're able to realize the efficiencies between multiple steps in a process. This will support your ability to implement change because you can braid solutions. If you understand how something works and why it works the way it does here, and the same thing here, your solutions are going to be more valuable, apt, and accurate. What this also does, and this will be a common theme also, in any job you are in, always be learning. Again, going back to the difference between leadership and management. Leaders are the people that others come to answer questions. They are your resources. They are your institutional knowledge for the agency that you will be working in. Be one of those. Be one of those. Those people get paid. And we'll get into another analogy in just a moment. Also, know your audience. Specifically, what I'm talking about is you could be the most brilliant man, woman, otherwise, in the world. If you are not capable of talking to or working with the person that sits to your left or your right, your knowledge and abilities are severely watered down. Again, you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you're a total jerk to work with, it doesn't matter. Counterpoint, you could be pretty good at your job, but if people like working with you because you understand the differences in culture, experience, ethics, religion with the individuals you're working with, if you are a pleasant person to work with, that is value added above the skills that you currently offer. And we'll touch on this in a little bit in the future. Your relationships that you will form at work with your your colleagues, maybe some subordinates, despite the fact that I hate that word, your superiors. Being able to do these things will help you get to the next level, establish you as a leader, and if you're someone that people want to work with, doors will open widely. Someone could be scoring 90 out of 100 on something, and you could be scoring 75 out of 100. But if that 90 out of 100 person is a total pain in the butt to work with, they're going with you. Because people can work with you, and you can work with other people. To individuals here and listening, if you have not gained that experience yet, and it's okay if you haven't, but if you feel like you've lived in a bubble, not experiencing other cultures, and I don't mean flying to Europe, I mean just talking to other people. If you do not have that experience yet, I encourage you to start developing that experience right now. So where did I get that in college? First, I mentioned I was on the track team, and typically athletic programs, we're bringing people in from all parts of the country, all parts of the state, so it's a bit of a melting pot. But any person that I've worked with that has been willing to listen to me, and this is not a shot at education. Education is 100% important. I learned more in my time as a member of a fraternity to apply those skills to a professional setting than I did in class. I could tell you about pedagogy and teaching. We could talk about criminal justice procedures all day. But in my career surprise, none of that mattered. But what I was able to do is leverage that experience of working with other people, working with school administration officials, managing a group of 18 to 22-year-olds is not easy. So you're working on time management. These are all skills that you can learn. It doesn't need to be a fraternity or sorority. Join a group. Be involved at SUU. There's more to your college experience than going to class. As a matter of fact, the first job interview I had when I graduated, I felt like such an idiot. Because I was talking to this recruiter, he was actually from Sherwin-Williams. And he noticed how much school I had missed. I was on the track team, so I had a bit of an excuse. So I told him, yeah, I was on the track team, so I missed some school. And I was not being myself, which again we'll get into in a minute. I was not being myself, and I told this recruiter, yeah, I regret missing that much school because I'm here to learn and sit in class. And no joke, he stopped the interview, put his papers aside, looked me dead in the eye, and told me I was wrong. College is more than sitting in a classroom. College is experiencing others, other groups, other people, other cultures. That will teach you the professional skills you need. The school will give you the education and the academic thought to apply. But again, if you do not have the experience or the skill of working with other people from different cultures, backgrounds, ethical values, moral values, you're going to be held back. The world is bigger than the bubbles that we live in. If you are not prepared to step out of that bubble, I will encourage you to be prepared for a more difficult life than you would experience if you're capable of working with other people. Next, presenting problems. This is something I feel very strongly about. I can't tell you, yes, I'm a manager. I hate that word. I don't like manager. I don't like supervisor. I don't like boss. A veteran I work with actually shared a phrase with me that I've adopted. And I look at work as one team, one fight. But as we get into this, the presenting problems, people tend to fall into one of two groups. The first group, they go to their boss and they tell them all the problems that they can see. There's a problem with this, there's a problem with this, there's a problem with that. You get a golf clap for that. Anybody can identify problems. Don't be the person that only identifies problems. The people that only identify problems, they get offices in the basement. And I'm going to date myself a little bit, that if you're the type of person that only points out problems, you'll get an office in the basement, and maybe you'll get that shiny red stapler from Office Space that you can take down with you to the basement. Instead of only presenting problems, always come armed with solutions. Don't go to your boss only with problems. Say, hey, boss, I've seen this. This is what I think we can do about it. And you start a discussion back and forth. Not only are you establishing a relationship with your boss, you're also demonstrating that anybody can point out problems. But the best amongst us identify those problems and come with solutions. Like I said, group one gets offices in the basement. Maybe with your red stapler, maybe not. Those people that identify problems and come with solutions, those are the people that get paid, and those are the people that get promoted. Now I'll do a quick plug and tell you life isn't all about money, but we'll get into that in just a moment. But before you can leverage any of these skills and apply them anywhere, you have to get the job first. No one's applying these skills where they're doing laundry while they're unemployed, right? We get the job to apply these skills. Any first step in getting a job is, aside from the application, is the interview. I can tell you in my experience, applications come in, and having hired dozens of people over the years, I don't even look at the applications. Our human resources agency looks at them, sees that they meet minimum standards, and they give me an interview list. So what are some interviewing tips? Some of these are going to sound, I'll do a quick plug. Some of these are going to sound obvious, but please take it from me. They sound obvious. A very concerning percentage of people do not do these things. They walk away from the obvious. The first, going into an interview, remember, tell yourself, I got this. Take a deep breath. Have confidence in yourself. No one sold themselves to any employer by thinking that they were just mediocre. Many of you have heard the term fake it till you make it. It works. If you don't have confidence or you don't have the level of confidence you want, fake it. Fake that confidence. That will establish a behavior within yourself, and you will believe it. And you will be more confident in yourself. I saw a TED Talk a while ago, and this is something that I've actually done and encouraged other people to do. Giving yourself confidence can be a very easy step. Before you go into the interview room, and I encourage you to do it in private because you're going to look like a weirdo if you do it out in open, take up as much space as you can. Dance around, right? Absorb the space that you are in. You are bigger than yourself. This will give you that confidence. And also, another quick plug, when you're going into an interview, don't live in your head. Live in your heart. You're not telling them what you think they want to hear. You need to tell them your best answer to the question, which we'll also get into in just a moment. And then next, our cliche of the day, be yourself. Everybody's heard that. Be yourself. But it's generally provided in the context of be yourself so you're calm in an interview. I don't mean it like that. Of course I want you to be calm in an interview. We can't be just erratic and all over the place. But I say be yourself for a completely different reason. Be yourself in an interview because if you get that job and you are not yourself in that interview, you are faking it for the rest of your time with that employer. And while I already mentioned fake it till you make it with confidence, you are not going to fake it till you make it to be an entirely different person. Taking a job where you completely faked who you were in the interview and having to fake it on the job, you will be unhappy, the job will be harder than it is, your relationship forming with other colleagues, leaders, managers, subordinates in your agency will be strained. It will be difficult. Furthermore, in your time with that employer, if you come to the point that you can't make it, if you can't maintain who you're not, it's going to become obvious and lead to certain growing pains. So I encourage you, in your interview, be yourself. Now, qualifier. If being yourself is throwing on a Barney outfit with pink hot pants, don't do that. Don't do that. We're ourselves in the sense that we're engaging. We're saying what skills we do have that we actually have. Don't show up like the dude in a bathrobe at the interview to be yourself. But this goes back to not living in your head, thinking what people want to hear you say. Live in your heart and tell them what you think the answers to the questions are. It will serve you well, and you will be much happier in that job. When you're happy in a job, it leads to longevity. And by leveraging some of these skills, that longevity turns into pay, promotion, and happiness. Because you're yourself at work, people know who you are, and they know what to expect. It's incredibly valuable. Again, Being yourself is not about being calm in the interview. Being yourself is about presenting your true self, because you want the job that fits with you. If you fake it and end up in a job that you don't like, you're going to set yourself back. Next, do the obvious. And again, I mentioned this a little bit ago. It's the obvious. So we would assume that everybody does this. Again, having been in the position of hiring dozens of people, not everybody does the obvious. And you can probably guess what those obvious things are. Dress nice. Be on time. Make eye contact with the individual or individuals that you're interviewing with. Again, this sounds obvious, but there is a concerning number of people that will come into these interviews that do not do the obvious. Separate yourselves from them. Ultimately, a job interview is a competition. You need to demonstrate why you're the right person just as much as that demonstration shows that someone else was the wrong person for the job. Having seen people that do these things, I can tell you, I don't know where they work now, but it sure isn't with us. Last, laugh. And I don't mean come in there like the Joker, just cackling like a crazy person at everything. But it's about being engaging. People want to hire individuals not just for the skills they have, because quite frankly, you'll realize most employers can teach the skills that they want their employees to have. They want to work with people that are teachable, but importantly, coming into this laugh, they want to work with people that are personable, that they can get along with, that they can work together with. Again, going back, you could be the smartest person in the world and the best at something, but if you are incapable of engaging and working with others, you're going to severely minimize the skills that you have. The counterpoint, if you are engaging, and again, the interview is the first place to do this. If you are engaging, those are the people that others want to work with. So while I said not being engaging can be counterproductive to the skills that you do have, being engaging can add extra value to the skills that you may not have, as well as the next person. I assure you, being a hiring manager, when I ask questions, I'm generally I don't know what to expect from your answer. I'm looking for these things. Are you engaging? Are you making eye contact? Are you laughing when something's funny? Can I get along with you? Again, because most employers you work with will realize they can teach anybody almost anything. What they cannot do is teach hard work, interpersonal skills, and the ability to work together in groups of individuals. Which reminds me of a funny joke. I just saw it on the internet, and I think it was applicable to my first year at SUU. I came down here, thought, oh my gosh, everybody at SUU is smarter than me. What the heck am I doing? And maybe everybody at SUU was smarter than me, except for the 3 other people that were always in my group projects. Clearly I got them beat, but everybody else felt smarter than me. So we talked about some tips in interviewing, but what are some of the skills? First, and I have a quick story to share about this. I just learned this and reached out to some other hiring managers and talked about what their perspective was. So what I want to say is, it's okay to ask for a minute to gather your thoughts in an interview. A recent story. I had a colleague of mine that wanted to switch from the agency I was previously at to get a job with this agency. And I really wanted him to get the job. I disclosed our relationship, professional relationship, before the interview. But in his interview, it was myself, another hiring manager, and someone from our human resources team. In the course of the questions, this gentleman said, "Could you give me 30 seconds to collect my thoughts?" Now, my first impression from that was, oh dear, what does this mean to an interview? Being a little bit nervous about it. After the interview was over, I spoke with our HR representative who gave me an incredible professional perspective of what I just experienced in that interview. She tells me, "Chandler, when someone asks if they're going to have time to collect their thoughts, how I look at it is they want to be genuine with you. They want to be upfront, truthful, honest. They want the interview to go as well as they can. But what it really demonstrates is interviews are nerve-wracking. What it really does is demonstrate someone who can look people of either real or perceived authority and say, I need a minute. I need to reconsider kind of what's going on so I can provide you with my best answer or product. How that translates in real life, in work, is someone that is not afraid to ask questions. If they're given project A, someone that's afraid to ask questions or pause is going to make assumptions about what you want, and the product is less than likely to be what you want. But instead, in this interview, and it is true, I'm working with him now, it really demonstrated that he was the type of person that was willing to get a task, but pause to ask questions about expectations and deliverables to get the product that he wanted to deliver and that I wanted to implement for our agency. So when you're in an interview, and again, they can be incredibly nerve-wracking, it's okay to ask for that break. Collect your thoughts. Now, I mentioned other hiring managers I spoke with. I spoke to the HR representative, but I also spoke to some others, and they conveyed the same exact thought to me. So if you're like me and thought that this may not be a great thing to do in an interview, turns out we're wrong. And it's okay to gather your thoughts. Next, some obvious things. Arrive in the Goldilocks time zone. Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? Not too early, not late, but right there in the Goldilocks zone. That typically ends up being about 10 minutes. But I want to give you a qualifier that, again, not every interviewee goes through. If you're scheduled for an interview, feel free to call that hiring manager and ask. Ask a little bit about the job. Those are all important things. But the point I want to get to here is ask the hiring manager if they are going to give candidates an opportunity to review the interview questions prior to going in. Some agencies do that, some agencies don't. I can say the majority do give the questions, but what they also do, and my point to this is, they give those candidates a certain time period to review the questions. That's what you're asking them. If they say, we'll give you 15 minutes, if you follow this 10-minute, you just lost 5. Call, find out what the process is going to be like to maximize your time to realize the most value out of your question. Now, out of your interview, excuse me. Engaging with your audience. Again, this sounds like something simple, but what my agency does is we typically do group interviews. Instead of one person, there's typically 3 to 4 of us. And what I constantly see is, again, because it can get nerve-wracking, they'll typically do a round robin. I'll ask a question, someone else, and someone else. What I'm encouraging you to do in that situation, the person asking the question is speaking for the room. They're speaking for the others there that are trying to make the hiring decision. And why that's important is in your response, you're also engaging with the others in the room. Maintaining eye contact only with the person that is asking you the question, I assure you, will make the other 3 people they won't appreciate it, is what I'm getting at. So you're engaging with everybody in there. You're speaking to the room. And again, going back to the previous slide, we mentioned laughing. Here, humor is an incredible way to engage with your audience as we're going through this. And just a qualifier on my next part, some personal experience as a person that hires. I see this a lot, especially with recent graduates. No one cares what your GPA was. Be proud of your GPA. If you had a 4.0, that's awesome. To everybody in this room that's heard this phrase before, C's get degrees. And you freshmen and sophomores that are here and those that are listening, I can tell you, yeah, I fell into that trap. C's do get degrees. But you know what C's don't do? Get you into graduate school. They don't get you into law school, and they sure as heck don't get you into medical school. Don't fall into that trap. Also, another, again, my personal experience, a little bit of a pet peeve that I end up having is when we're interviewing, and you can start to see when people are waffling a little bit on their answers, which is fine, it's expected. I encourage you not to tell the interviewer after every question, wow, that's a great question. Because I assure you, if they thought it was a bad question, they're not asking you. There's no value in saying that. All it looks like is you're buying time and you're offering empty platitudes that many people will find offensive, and you could have an incredible interview otherwise, but these negative aspects will be multiplied by a factor of 10 against the great things that you do. And please always remember, you do not want every job that you apply for. I promise you that. Just a little bit of a quick heads up. Every employer knows that they have jobs in their industry that are terrible. They're awful to work in, and no one wants to do it. So how do employers counteract that? They church up the application. They want it to sound like the greatest job you've ever had. No, someone left that job before you. And it may not be because they got a promotion or because they retired as millionaires. It is likely someone left the job because they didn't like it. That does not mean you will not like it. But I encourage you, you do not want every job that you apply for. And we'll touch on some of these principles a little bit as we go through. So some helpful tips on new professionals or soon-to-be professionals. I previously mentioned the difference between managers and leaders. In your new job that you take, identify those leaders. And again, managers aren't necessarily leaders. They can be, but they are not always leaders. Identify those leaders. Learn from them. Establish professional relationships with those leaders. And importantly, seek those leaders' advice. They can offer you far more unique perspective into what it takes to succeed with your employer than perhaps a manager can. They are your go-tos. And again, managers are taskmasters. This is the project I want. This is when I want it done by. That's a manager. They're checking boxes, right? A leader says, this is your project. This is what I expect. And they support you and give you the knowledge, skills, and ability to get to the product that everybody wants. By identifying leaders, you're able to get inside information, efficient information, and an understanding of the culture and how your agency works. Rely on leaders, not managers. A leader may be the person sitting in the office next to you. They may be in the cube next to you. It may be the executive assistant who's been there for 30 years, and she or he is a leader because they know, going back to this, not just that something happens, but they know the why things happen. Those leaders will be able to support you and get you what you need to be successful far more than someone who just lives their life as a manager. Also, doing more than is expected. This sounds like something obvious, but this is the way that I can put it. Meeting minimum expectations equals minimum pay. If you just do the barely what is necessary just to get through to the next day, you will stay where you are. It's not likely that you're going to get raises and promotions. Instead, do more than is expected. That does not mean you cannot prioritize your primary responsibilities. Of course. Identify your primary responsibilities and exceed the expectations of your employers. Now, this can come with a qualifier, and this is why it's important to maintain those relationships with the leaders. You need to have an understanding in your agency about what does exceeding expectations mean. If an employer wants you to write a legislative history for the Clean Water Act of 1976, that's the expectation, but you can exceed that expectation by being more thorough, by offering the product more quickly, by going deeper than they expect you to go. I say there's a qualifier on this because if you're doing a legislative history on the Clean Water Act of 1976, but all of a sudden you think doing more is talking about the Clean Air Act of who cares, you didn't add any value there. So again, relying on those leaders, understand in your agency what exceeding expectations looks like. Many times your leaders will provide you with multiple products. This is product A. This met minimum expectations. This is product B that exceeded expectations. And we see the differences. Your exceeding of expectations will be unique to your employer and the culture that you find yourselves in. Again, leveraging those relationships with leaders rather than managers. Also, there's more to life than money. And I've already had a few qualifiers, but I'm going to give you another one. There is more to life than money, obviously. Most people in this room and the individuals listening have heard, money can't buy you happiness. That's not true. Money can buy you happiness. But it costs 7 figures a year, and you're probably not going to be able to afford it. That's just the legitimate part of this. So, how do we see that there's more to life than money, but what this really starts to get into is seeking balance in your life. And we'll get into some passions and my thoughts on that. But in a typical work week, working 40 hours, Some of you may end up in more demanding jobs, 60, 70 hours a week. I encourage you to really look at your life balance if you're doing something like that. But working a typical 40-hour week, about 24% of the hours in that week will be work. Fine. Those 24% is what it is. I want you to focus on the 76%. I'll save my next for the next slide. But that is where our balance should be. That's where our mental effort should be. That's where we live. 25% of my time is dedicated to work. 75% of my time is dedicated to being a functional adult, having fun, spending time with your spouse, families. If you don't have a spouse or family, doing the fun things that you like. And I'm going to preface my next slide really quickly, but many times people cannot find passion in their work. Fine. That is not a problem at all. And if you think that's going to be a problem, I assure you it won't. By seeking balance in your life, work gives you the opportunity to fund your life and seek your passion elsewhere. So, passion clearly exists, but if your passion is not your work, don't worry. I assure you, you're not missing out on anything. You've probably all heard the phrases, chase your passion, or if work is your passion, you'll never work another day in your life. That's all great, fine, and dandy. But I'll tell you, most people that speak at you about those things haven't found their passion in work either. They're hoping they find theirs when you find yours. Know what your passion is and how to get to it. Again, the reality is most of us will not find a passion in our work. And that is okay. Because work only represents 25% of my week. I have 75% of my week elsewhere to find my passion. Work can fund your passion and get into it. I can tell you, I struggled with this a little bit. Always hearing that phrase, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Monetize your passion. I struggled for so long and even tried to convince myself, fake it till you make it. This is my passion. This is my passion. But it wasn't. I could not fake myself into making that true. But instead, introspectively, I looked at, what is my passion? And you'll find yours. My passion was not work. But my passion was being good at what I did. I could find passion in that. Being good at what I did. Being a leader. Being there to help my colleagues and other people. Being someone that others can rely on. That's my passion. And, importantly for this conversation, I can find that passion anywhere. I could go work at a Twinkie factory. But if I'm the best damn Twinkie maker out there, I'm happy. That's my passion. You'll find it. If you do not know your passion right off the bat, that is okay. That is okay. The point that I want to make is work doesn't always have to be it. But work funds your lifestyle to find the passion that you want with that other 75% of your time. I apologize about the math. This thing's driving me nuts. Okay, let's see. Things to always remember as we wrap this up. Be true to yourself, not what others expect of you. Only satisfying others will result in no satisfaction in your life. Be true to yourself. Do those things that you want to do, that you need to do. Happiness comes from within, not serving not serving other people's ideas of what your happiness should be. Got ahead of myself, but here, your happiness will come from within, not from making other people happy about your decisions. Relating this personally really quick, I really felt like my happiness for a long time was making my mom and my dad proud of me. Took me till I was like 30 years old to say, heck with that. I'm going to do what makes me happy. And then everybody was happy. Also, you will make mistakes. I promise you, you'll make mistakes. Your employer will expect you to make mistakes. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. But don't make them twice. Don't make the mistake twice. Also, life will have ups and downs. Enjoy the ups because they're great. When the down comes, learn from it. Apply what you've learned to minimize those swings in life as we go through. Always be learning. Again, going back to the difference between leadership and management. Always be learning about the why things happen in your career. You are the person that people will go to. You will be a leader. You will be a resource. Those people get promoted and paid. People that do not do this, offices in the basement. Also, sometimes success looks like you're screwing up on your own terms. That's fine. And I'll circle that back to you'll make mistakes. Learn from them, but don't make the same mistake twice. Some mistakes you can only make once, so I encourage you to realize what those mistakes are and not make them either. Also, on your first day of graduation, know this. You will not want to work for the rest of your life. Start planning for retirement with your first paycheck. I promise you, it will be painful at first. You will set a pattern of behavior, and you will get there. I'm happy to say I have a retirement plan, and I will completely retire on my 54th birthday, which is about 12 years faster than I thought I was going to be able to do it. So please, as you graduate, know you will not want to work forever. Start saving for retirement. And back to our relationships in our work life. In organizations, real power and energy is generated through these relationships. Relationships can be more powerful and more important than the tasks, function, roles, and responsibilities within your agency. We spoke about this briefly earlier. You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you are not capable of working through relationships and establishing them, you will negatively impact your value. The counterpoint, if you are still learning skills and developing your skills, but you are just darn awesome at establishing relationships, that is value added, and it will get you where you want to go. I assure you, the people that get promoted are not just the greatest people who do the best work. They're the people who can lead, support, and encourage and get the most out of others. That is where you want to be. And that's how we can help get there. So that brings a conclusion to the presentation. Again, just a special thank you to the folks at the SUU Career Center for bringing me down. I really love coming down to SUU. It's a great place. Again, I want to give a special thank you to my wife for coming down and being willing to entertain a turn and burn from Cedar City back to Salt Lake in a single day with me. And, well, two more things. For my kids that are probably watching this at YouTube at home, listen to your aunt. Do what she says. Don't touch the puppies, and don't ask if one can come home because the answer is no. And lastly, to my fraternity brothers that I know are watching online, Teneo, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. thank you all for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your evening, and thank you and congratulations on your incredible choice of SUU and on your ability to graduate. You have a bright future in front of you. As an SUU graduate, I expect you to go out into the world and kick serious tail. So thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Chandler, for coming down. We really appreciate the time you've spent helping us walk through your career surprise to career success. Know that we're always available to help in the Career Center. If you need help with job seeking skills, you can visit the Student Center 204, or you can visit us online and schedule an appointment today. Thank you so much for attending and have a great night.